Gather around, sit down, not everyone has to be
Sorry, this is Alexander with the Student Association.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
That's like above when you go north, like
Okay. Okay, very good, thanks.
right? Maryland, like okay. Right?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
They're all
Good morning.
How lucky am I? I'm just propping up your briefcase here.
Oh, yes, about that.
Do you know exactly how they're going to do this?
So I think they've got remarks. At least that's what they tell me.
The end. Like I always like had that really bad habit where I say the end. Like okay, now the end. Like to let people know. Or I'm like, yep, done.
No, not a one. No. A year ago I made the Civil War. Not this year. Was it this year or last year that the first race was last year?
I think it was this year.
It was this year.
Yeah.
I remember having this little twinge of
Caught everybody off guard, yeah.
it didn't last too long, but
No, that's okay.
Okay, everyone, I think we're going to get started. I know people have come from far and wide, so thank you so much. And we have the senators will be here shortly. Some of them are at other meetings, but I know we have with us today our majority leader, Senator Reed, who's worked so hard on student issues and on this campaign, and Jeff Merkley also. Where are you, Jeff? Are you? Where? Oh, right there. Very good. So Harry has one bad eye, and he can see him, and I can't. So there we go. Okay, Jeff is there. He looks so student and millennial-like that I didn't notice.
years younger.
Okay, very good. Bob Menendez, Senator from New Jersey, just came in. We welcome him, and of course, Jean Shaheen, our vice chair, is with us as well. All of you are going to share with us our stories, and this is something that I think for a long time people were talking about student loans, and when you start hearing about it from people you know, people down the street, people in your family, you really start to understand what it means. Just this last night, I was actually driving in a blizzard from Iowa, I wonder why I was there, to Minnesota, and one of my volunteers there in the car was telling me, and she works for me, she works so hard, $60,000 in student loans, went to a public university like many of you, worked her way through, did everything she can, has a fairly good job now, but she can barely meet her payments. So we're hearing this all the time, and that's why we are glad you're here to talk about I'm not gonna, there's so many good speakers we're gonna have. I'm not gonna share all these numbers that you all know. You don't need me telling you about the $1.3 trillion in debt, since many of you are part of that debt load and want to release it and want to do something about it. As you know, Senate Democrats have a number of great ideas to stop this and to pay for, help students pay for their loans, including the president's idea for free community college. And so you're going to hear about those today. And we've actually made this our major campaign of the year in the red. With your buttons, thank you. I wore red today. It was also, it really worked out because it's also Heart Day, and they asked you to wear red, so I was pretty happy about that. In any case, thank you very much, and I will turn it over to our great leader, Senator Harry Reid.
Amy, thank you very much. We have been working for years on the situation involving student loans, years. And we as Democrats have offered pieces of legislation, we've offered amendments, and they've all been voted against without exception by every Republican. So this is not a new issue with us, but it is becoming more pronounced because the biggest problem we have in America today regarding debt is student debt, not credit cards, student debt. And for people who are older than 50 years, it is hard for people to comprehend why can't they just work and put themselves through school? It's impossible. You can't do it. And people are beginning to realize what a difficult time we're having getting education for we have to be an educated nation, and we're not as well as we should be. Amy does a terrific job. She's chair of the Steering and Policy Committee. Every Wednesday we meet here, as we are today, to be educated. And that's her main responsibility, is to educate Democratic senators. She does a wonderful job.
Don't tell them that. They won't.
Well, I think we're pretty well educated. I think you do a very good job. And so we're happy you're here. I apologize. The Senate opens at 9:30, and I'm going to go bash the Koch brothers because what they're doing now, Senator King and I have an amendment on the floor to make it easier for people to have solar power in their homes. And the Koch brothers, they have an organization called ALEC, which is a phony front for their billions of dollars, and they have weighed in on this big time. And likely the Republicans will not support us on this amendment, but we're going to continue focusing on them and the other things that we feel are important for this country, not the least of which is to make sure that we can do a better job of educating our young.
Very good. Thank you so much, Harry. Thanks for your leadership. We've been joined by Mazie Hirono of Hawaii, Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin, who's been a leader in these efforts, and we'll hear from later Chris Coons from Delaware. And I think I introduced everyone else. We're now going to hear a little bit from Jean Shaheen, and then we'll start hearing from some of our students.
Well, first of all, thank you all very much for taking the time to be here this morning, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say. I'm sure you know stories like the one we heard from a single mother and her daughter in Londonderry, New Hampshire. They had taken out $80,000 in student loans, and 2 years after her daughter graduated, the interest payment alone on that debt is $3,500. So we have got to do a better job. We've got to do a better job with helping students afford higher education, but we've also got to do a better job with holding colleges accountable for the costs of higher education and how fast they are increasing, and for making sure that they better inform students about what they're facing when they're taking out student loans. So I think we have a lot of work to do, and I really look forward to hearing what you all have to say this morning. Thank you.
Thanks. I think we'll start with Kalia Harris from George Mason, and Senator Kane is here, and maybe you want to say a few words, Senator Kane, introduce her, and we welcome you.
Happy to have Kalia with us. She's a student at George Mason, and she's got a challenging story about, you know, it's a good one because it's a dream of advancement and education, and then it's the challenges in the way. But she's like so many of our students. Senator Warner and I had a roundtable with Virginia students from our public and private colleges last week, including George Mason, and the stories are they really grab you, and we need to hear them because they'll give us energy and inspiration to do better. And I know we'll talk later about bills that we have and pieces of legislation, but it's important to hear these student stories, and I'm really happy to have Kalia here. Kalia.
Yeah, Kalia, why don't you tell us your story briefly and how the student loans have affected you?
Definitely. Hi, everyone. My name is Kalia Harris. Oh, thank you. I'm a senior at George Mason University now. All right, there we go. I'm a senior at George Mason University, so I'll graduate in May. I'm actually 99 days away from my graduation now.
Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah. Yeah, so exciting. So I'm studying community health, and my total loan debt right now is $3,800, so like 38,000. And that's kind of the number that's defining me right now. Last night was actually the first time I looked at my debt because I've been trying to forget about it all 4 years. But the real essence of my story is that I come from a working class family from Richmond, Virginia, and my family sacrificed a lot to move us from the city to the county so that I could have a better life and have a better opportunity at education. And so I worked super hard all through high school, all through all of my schools really, and I graduated with a 4.3 GPA in high school. Got into George Mason, came here, it's my home, and I have made George Mason, I've created a legacy there. We can talk about that a little later, but I've always gotten all of my federal loans, unsubsidized, subsidized, all of those languages that I don't really understand, but I signed up for it anyways because I had to. And I've gotten the Pell Grant every year except this year because my family was $250 over the amount that is like recommended for the Pell Grant. So we lost the Pell Grant, so I've looked at thousands of dollars that I couldn't pay for this year for school. And I've worked 3 to 4 jobs pretty much to hold down the tuition payments that I've had to pay every year because my family can't pay for it, so somebody's got to do it. And we've just increased loans every year, and not only that, but the tuition at Mason has gone up every year as well. So last year we had a 5.5% increase in tuition, and then you add the shortage of financial aid as well, and I'm stuck in this place where how am I going to pay these thousands of dollars? I've never seen the $1,000 bill before I got to school, and it's in my name. Like, that's pretty scary. But I continued to work. I changed my major from biology to community health so that I can be more of a public servant in the future. And we created this fund called Stay Mason. So last semester, was it maybe a year ago, spring semester, I was unable to pay. I had like $2,000 that I was not going to be able to pay to register for my classes. So at George Mason, if you can't pay your bill, you can't register for your next semester. So I actually called this game, how do I pay my bill before it's too late to register for classes? And that happened every semester. This is my 8th semester at George Mason, and for 7 semesters past, I've always struggled and had to register for my classes late. And imagine that stress when you're in class, in chemistry class, y'all, trying to understand equations, and you're like, oh, also, there's this equation of how am I actually going to pay for this school when I get out of class? And that took a heavy burden on my schoolwork. And it took me really being connected to my university and finding an administrator that knew a way to help me. But as a first-generation student, it's really hard to find those resources unless you're out there and really saying, like, hey, I do have thousands of dollars that I don't know how to pay. Can you please help me? And so we worked together to create a $1 million fund that we call Stay Mason. So students like myself who are in my position are able to apply for this fund, and there's a tuition relief. But the problem is that this is a Band-Aid solution. They're not even thinking of replenishing our $1 million fund next year. And our school has over $3 million in need that we would need to continue on. Yeah, so I'll wrap it up. But basically, I want to end with, I have been constantly worried about how to pay for school through each semester, and now I'm going to be faced with almost $40,000 of debt to be constantly worried about for the rest of my existence, probably, unless we start to make moves here in this room and beyond.
Kalia, 60%, as compared to Virginians, 60% of Virginians graduate with debt, and the average debt's about $26,000, and so her $40,000, definitely puts her in the upper end.
Wow.
Thanks, Kalia.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bob Menendez, you want to introduce Micheline? Sure. Thank you.
I didn't have my first cup of coffee, but sitting next to Kalia makes me energized right away. So thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you all for coming and joining with us. And we have Professor Roldan from New Jersey who epitomizes what our country wants to be all about. But even when you reach the highest levels of academia, you can still be deeply burdened by debt. And she'll talk about that. First in her family, to be able to graduate from college, between her and her husband, an enormous amount of debt, I think around $170,000, living with her family for a period of time so that they could pay that down and saved for a home, and then God intervened and decided you're going to have 2 children. So along the way, these are real-life challenges, and they're very compelling. And I'll just say, as I turn it over to Micheline, that for many of us, this is very, very real. In my own life, as someone who is the son of immigrant parents, first in his family to go to college, growing up poor in a tenement in New Jersey, the only way that I got to go to college and then later go to law school was with the power of the federal government and its loans and assistance programs. And but for that, I certainly wouldn't be one of 100 United States senators. We want that to be the opportunity to be a birthright for every American who has the ability, willing to work hard and be able to achieve. And we need it as a national imperative because we are globally challenged, which means we need the apex of the highest education of Americans we've ever had. And Professor Roldan is an example of that. So welcome and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much, Senator Menendez, for that amazing introduction. My name is Micheline Farhat Roldan. My story begins, I am a product of hardworking Lebanese immigrants. My parents escaped Lebanon from the civil war that was happening in the 1970s to Venezuela. My father worked very, very hard from nothing to build up businesses there. He gave it all up when the economy started to go bad in Venezuela, all for the sake of us being educated. My whole life, my parents told me the reason we're in the U.S. because this is the land of opportunity. This is where my daughters can receive a really strong education and do not have to struggle paycheck to paycheck like we did. Yet I find myself in my parents' position. I graduated from Seton Hall University and John Jay College of Criminal Justice with a master's. I have enjoyed a career in victim services. Not glamorous, not high-paying jobs, but it's my way of giving back to the community. I am married, as Senator Menendez said. I'm coming up 4 years. I have 2 beautiful little girls, ages 2 and 1. So pray for me. I'm also an assistant professor at Bergen Community College. I am a product of a community college and believe in what community colleges do for students, and so my give back was to go work at a community college. And I don't just teach criminal justice and sociology courses. I am an advisor. I'm also the advisor for student government. I do academic advising. I do leadership workshops. I try to give back as much as I can to these students. But sadly, as Senator Menendez stated, I'm heavily in debt. $170,000 is not small change. Seton Hall and John Jay are very reputable universities, and I knew that going to these schools would help me really get good jobs, and they have. People are very impressed with the John Jay, Seton Hall background, but they came at a price. My husband went to Drexel for his MBA. I see people going, yes, Drexel, of course. See, Drexel's a great school, but that came at a price. And so when you have $170,000 in debt and you are a community college professor, one of the fallacies that people tend to believe is that college professors get paid a lot of money. You have to work for a lot of years to get up to the 6-figure salary as a college professor or work as a researcher in the research institutions such as Rutgers University. Majority of us sit in a lower pay grade, ranging from I started at $46,000. So you can imagine $170,000 in debt starting at $46,000. You start to do the math. Our student loan debt is more than our mortgage. Right? We're at almost $2,000 in student loan every month, and our mortgage is about $1,580. So you can imagine the difference in that. And daycare doesn't come cheap. And if I don't put my children in daycare, child services will probably take them away. I can't leave them alone. So, so what has it done? I forfeited maternity leave twice. I actually worked through both pregnancies. In fact, the second semester, I delivered my child, and 2 days later in the hospital, I was greeting students online. Welcome to this class. I'm so happy to see you. We live paycheck to paycheck. We can't save for our children's education. I can no longer help my parents. My sisters and I were trying to help them financially because they borrowed a lot of money just to be able to put food on the table and keep the lights on. And like the person sitting next to me, when I was in school, I did well in school, but I didn't receive a lot of financial aid that would cover my tuition, and I was not given the Pell Grant my last 2 years because my parents hit that threshold, and such. So, and my brother's in school, and my parents are continuing to pull from the line of credit to send him to community college. That's a struggle. At the same juncture, I see my students struggle, and I will tell you their stories. You know, my students are working 3 or 4 jobs just to pay community college tuition. And so to me, that's alarming, you know, that's occurring in this country. And honestly, it makes me feel a little bit like I was lied to or deceived in terms of this is a land of opportunity. If I work hard, you know, I've been working since I was 12 years, and I'll wrap this up, I'm so sorry, but I've been working since I was 12 years old. I've had 3 or 4 jobs my entire life. I worked hard. I played by the rules. I did everything I was supposed to do. I'm giving back to the community, and we're playing a game of how much money can we pull to make ends meet?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that was quite a story. And if you heard Chuck like murmuring here, it's because he was agreeing with you. So I thought I did. He was outraged. And so if I don't turn to him right now, he's going to keep doing it. So.
No, I just wanted to, what have we done to our kids in this country? What you said is right, the American dream, we're taking it away from you unless we change this. And I just have to say, we have to help you pay for this, but we can't let the tuition keep going up and up and up and up. Our colleges, our universities, they have some responsibility here. And we can't just be a machine. We raise Pell Grants, we raise this, and they raise tuition. We have to, this is just, I am really moved by what you said and your students. To have $170,000 in debt, and we hear this over and over again, when you're making a good salary of $40,000 or $50,000 a year, we cannot have it anymore. And I just have to say, most of our thrust has been getting more government assistance. That's good. I'm all for it. But we also have to stop tuition from going up. One of my colleagues said, I'm going to stop right now, I'm sorry. One of my colleagues said, when he graduated from college, the cost of tuition and the cost of a Ford were about the same. Today, a Ford costs $20,000 and a tuition costs $60,000. Why is there such a disparity? Well, we got to get after that, too. So thank you very much, and I'll shut up. So I'm sorry.
Very, very good. We have also been joined by Senator Casey, and we've been joined by Senator Whitehouse and Senator Cardin from Maryland. I know Senator Merkley has to leave in a little bit, and he was the first one in the door. And so I'm going to ask everyone to just keep their remarks down because, as you know, we have a lot of great people to hear from, and so to try to do it like in a minute would be really helpful because we end it at 10 o'clock. So I'm going to start with Senator Merkley, go over to our student leader, and then to Senator Baldwin. Okay.
It's a pleasure for me to be here and introduce 2 outstanding students, Alexandra, who will be speaking at some point when
After Taylor, that'll be good.
Is president of the U.S. Student Association and previously was the chair of the Oregon Student Association. And she has her story of crushing debt to share. I think about how our campaign is in the red to draw attention, and we need to have an out of the red campaign for the things we want to successfully do to change college from being an unaffordable financial gauntlet. Taylor is a student at Oregon State University, comes from rural Oregon, from Union, and he was formerly the student body president of Oregon State and is now serving on the Board of Trustees, the inaugural Board of Trustees for the university. And he is going to share a few thoughts about Oregon and its program, the Oregon Promise, that makes community college debt-free. So I'm delighted to have these 2 outstanding folks here.
Okay.
Like the senator said, I'm from a very small town, so I'm just humbled by the opportunity to be here and recognize how unlikely, as a first-generation college student who is the son of a mom that works at the United States Post Office and my dad works for the Union Pacific Railroad. I graduated with 25 other kids in a small town in Oregon, and going to college was not a foregone conclusion because so many people so many people could not afford it and didn't view it as an opportunity for them. And so as I graduate with debt, I know that so many of my peers didn't even think about going to a community college or didn't even think about going to a four-year university, because when your family lives paycheck to paycheck and their home is less than the amount of student loans that you'll have to take out to get a degree, it's just not a reality in the world that I live in. And that's why I think it's so important that students who are in middle school or in high school have the opportunity to at least think about what college might look like for them and not be priced out because of the zip code that they live in or the parents that they were born to or their individual stories. So I just thank you all for allowing me to share that piece of rural Oregon with you all and use it as a moment to call to action. So thank you.
Thank you. Alexandra.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm very honored to be here and excited to talk about this really important issue that so many students and families are struggling to navigate. I'm also from the great state of Oregon. I spent most of my life there and come from a proud working class Latino family. And while we were low income and we didn't have money for a four-year college education, by the will of my mother, I found myself enrolled right out of high school at the University of Oregon. However, once I got into school, my mother and me began the ongoing struggle of keeping me in school and trying to finish my education. I really resonated with what Kalia was saying earlier of the ongoing stress. Every single semester, every single year, the constant question whether or not I was still going to be able to call myself a student. I had scholarships, I worked multiple jobs, and I was especially dependent on my federal loans. But because my family has a really unstable income, my loans would a lot of times be on hold for months at a time. And we'd have to front the education costs. And as Cleo was saying, there's a question, you couldn't register for classes if you still owed money. So again, every single semester it was this ongoing battle. And in my fourth year of school, after 4 years of that constant state of stress, both me and my mother, the loans are still on hold. I didn't have enough credits to graduate and didn't have enough money to be re-enrolled. So at that point, I was officially had to drop out of school. This was like very, very devastating for my family since we had struggled for so long to try and get me through. At this point, I was no longer a student. I was very involved with a lot of student organizing and advocacy around the higher education crisis, and then was elected by my peers to become the vice president of the U.S. Student Association, a membership of college students across the country struggling to navigate this system and fighting for education justice. I believe that we can do better, and that the proposals that we're talking about today and the proposals that we have going on in our states for 2 free years of community colleges are important steps for us to build a higher education system that works for everybody, not just some. Thank you.
Exactly, and that's a good segue, and I hope the Oregon program, I mean, you guys have been ahead of things, so it's a good segue to Senator Baldwin, and then we'll hear from Deborah, who's a community college issue, and then we also have been joined by Senator Durbin and Senator Warren. So thank you very much. And Senator Blumenthal hiding behind the two women in red. Huh? Yeah. Okay. Oh, that was impressive. Okay. Senator Baldwin and has a great proposal on community college.
Yeah, and I just want to echo the words of two of our presenters. First of all, Alexandra, we can do better. And thank you for exhorting us to imagine what we can do and push for what we can do. And Professor Roldan, I was just so moved by what you had to say about especially your parents' view of bringing their family to America, because this was the land of opportunity, and education is opportunity, and yet feeling the frustration that we're not realizing that promise right now. I just wanted to share that I'm very proud of the In the Red campaign, the components of the measure that Senate Democrats are putting forward, and especially after hearing from our Oregon panelists, Oregon and Tennessee and a number of individual institutions around the country have begun making a promise to students of 2 years or sometimes more higher education tuition free. And I believe that we need to, as a country, rethink the promise that we made in various states a century, sometimes a century and a half ago, that every child in our country deserves access to a free public education, K through 12. Back then, that was enough. That was enough to get somebody a great start in life, start on a career. Today, in the 21st century, with a high-skills economy and global competition, that's not enough anymore. And we need to re-envision that promise. And last summer, I introduced the America's College Promise Act, which covers tuition and fees for 2 years at a community college, technical college, or a pathway for 2 years at a minority-serving institution. And I think I'm just delighted that it is one of the pillars of the In the Red campaign. And I just, before I turn it over to, I think you said Deborah was next, I want to give a shout out to Maggie Thompson, who is hails from the state of Wisconsin and has been just such a great advocate for higher ed, not debt, as the campaign manager of that, and joined me for one of my roundtables in Wisconsin in Eau Claire last year, as we've been trying to hear the voices of students who are struggling.
Okay, very good. Why don't we go to Deborah and then Maggie? Thank you.
Thank you all for having me here. I think we work on behalf of students such as those that you've heard at Excellency in Education, and we focus a great deal on how students pay for college. Looking at Latinos, because the youth and growth is critical, but it affects all of us. They're just reflective of our younger generation going forward, and for us, it's critical to understand how they pay for college going forward. And we've seen that Pell Grants are not enough, and that states as well as institutions need to do more on behalf of our students. We've also seen that it is about affordability, but it's not just about access. It's also retention to completion. We heard students talk about not just getting in the door, but as tuition increases year over year, paying attention to the reality of our students' lives while they're trying to get the quality education and get the economic, social mobility we have aspired to for all of us that we deserve to give no less to our young people. And so we focus a great deal on what institutions are trying to do. And many institutions that are serving students who are very low income, first generation, in a concentrated mass, institutions like Hispanic serving institutions and others. We're seeing some innovative strategies. I don't think we're seeing as many as we can to partner with the investment that the federal government has made in these students. And I think we need to make sure we're paying attention to that. We're ready to talk about ideas when you want to have them. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you, Maggie.
I don't think I can say it much better than many of the students already have, but I am just so excited at the effort and energy that all of you at the table are putting into this campaign. I think, student debt is finally getting the attention that it deserves, commensurate with the size that it is and the weight that it is putting on our economy and families and individuals. And I think one of the most heartening things about the In the Red campaign is that we're sort of, it's a siren for raising the red flag on a huge problem, but that you are all also addressing solutions and trying to figure out how we can not just, make sure that we have an education system that's not churning out debt going forward, and that's, making Pell catch up to tuition, free community college, let's get to a K through 14 public system in this country. But also, there are a lot of people, over 43 million, that already have this debt. So initiatives like student loan refinancing that can help them as well. And I think we're going to hear from some folks that are out of school, because there are two sides to this story. There's the struggle to get the loans when you're in school, but there is a lot that we have to talk about in terms of what's happening when people have this debt afterwards. People are not saving for retirement. In some cases, they're delaying marriage or family. They're not able to start businesses. So I'm really heartened and very excited.
I think this issue that it affects their whole family. Their parents are trying to help, and then their parents are retiring and they're helping.
Yeah, parents who took out Parent Plus loans, and they're having debt as well, seniors. So I think I'm really heartened not just by the campaign and attention to just highlight the issue, but the really deliberate work that's being done to address both the front end, to fix the system going forward, but making sure we don't forget about the people that have the debt and are struggling now. So we're really excited to be here.
Well, very good. That's a good segue of people fixing things to go to Senator Murray, who is our Democratic lead on the committee. Then we'll hear from Senator Warren for her good work, and we'll go over to President Lomax and circle around there. Patty Murray.
Well, Senator Klobuchar, thank you so much for hosting this. I just want to thank all the students and families and people who are here speaking out, here and across the country. Maggie, I think you stated it so well. This is an issue that affects students who are thinking about going to college, students in college, and families afterwards, and it has a huge impact on our economy. And we are here to hear from all of you and in your stories, but we have solutions, and that's what we're working on, particularly in our committee as we look at higher education reauthorization. What can we do to address the issue of college affordability and its impact on so many people in our country and our economy? So I'm really delighted to be here today and to hear from all of you and to want you to know we're not just talking about the problem, we're talking about solutions. We need your help and support to get them done. So we're delighted to be a part of this today.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you for pulling this together and for everyone who's here today. You know, we've got a lot of good ideas on the table for how to bring down the cost of college, and it's going to take a lot of work to get that done. But the other half of this, reducing the interest rate on the student loans already outstanding, this one is simple. We just need to make it happen. We've got every single Democrat committed to this. We managed to get 3 Republicans last time around. But the Republicans keep filibustering our bill. Now, I just want to be clear on this part. The United States government lends money really as an investment in the future. But boy, do they decide who they most want to invest in right now. The United States government lends money to banks at an interest rate of less than 1%. Student loans, by contrast, can be at 5%, 7%, 9%, even higher with some of the loan programs. And the result is exactly what you would anticipate. That is, after the administrative costs have been accounted for, the bad debt losses have been accounted for, the cost of the funds, the student loan program is producing billions of dollars in profits for the United States government. In fact, I'll just take one slice of those loans, a representative slice so far as we know. The loans issued from 2007 to 2012 are on target today to produce $66 billion in profits for the United States government. That is obscene. We need to change this, and we need to change it now. Education is supposed to be about opportunity, but 70% of people who are headed to college have to borrow money in order to make the payments. And it is up to the United States government not to put an extra tax on those who are trying to get an education, not to say that if you're rich enough that mom and dad can write a check for your tuition, you'll pay this price. But if you're not, you got to pay above that, not just the cost of repaying your debt, but enough to produce a profit for the United States government. This has to be a place where you draw the line and say we are going to reduce the interest rate on student loans. This is our investment in the future, and this is a place where we all come together and we say we're ready to fight on this one. I don't feel strongly about this. But thank you all for being here, and thank you for being here because it is about fighting for what is right. It is about fighting for our future. Thank you.
Just Senator Warren did a good job of laying out 2 problems, which is the cost of college and then the amount of debt. And let me just put a third one on the table that we're tackling too, which is it's not just college, it's also career and technical education. We've got all kinds of programs. For example, you can get a Pell Grant for college. You can't get it for a high-quality career technical program. You can get a military tuition assistance grant if you're in the active military for college, but you can't use that money for high-quality career and technical. We all need education after high school, but some of it's career and technical, and we got to change our federal policies to treat that as first-class education, not second-class education.
Right, and also make it easier if employers want to pay for kids to go while they're working there. That's what we run against a lot. We have so many job openings right now in our state, and the employers would need a little more incentive, but a lot of them are paying now, so, okay. Dick wanted to say.
Thanks for doing this, and thanks for bringing it to our attention. I think most of the members here know what I'm going to say. 10% of college students are in for-profit colleges and universities. Think University of Phoenix, DeVry, Kaplan, and the like. 10 students go to the for-profit schools. 42% of student loan defaults are the students that go to those schools. This is a special subset, 10% of college students who have paid way too much in their tuition, dropped out, or ended up with a worthless diploma. It's our responsibility too. So they are the first line of victims in an inordinate way.
All right, very good. Thank you so much, Dick. We've also been joined by Senator Franken, my colleague, and we're going to turn, thank you, who's a member of the committee, to Dr. Lomax, who was just in Minnesota for our Martin Luther King incredible. How many people were there? I think 2,000.
That's right, Senator.
All I know is someone told him at the end people wrote him a check for $150,000 out of the blue. So that.
Yeah. Well, you know, we had Governor Patrick speaking,
Yeah.
and I think he was especially inspirational.
He was good.
But you know, he told the same story that these courageous young people are telling, and that is a first-generation college attender who had to overcome all kinds of educational barriers, social and economic barriers, to get an education that would launch him into the kind of life that every one of these young people aspires to. And I think they're incredible people, they're courageous, but we are not only giving them an incredible debt burden, which we're talking about, but we also heard here today that there's a tremendous emotional and psychological burden that they're having to figure out how to manage, as well as a financial debt burden. So let me just say to these folks who are calling out for really getting into this battle, that this is a battle worth fighting. And the United Negro College Fund, which has been doing this work for 72 years, is here to fight with you. You know, this year we will award over $100 million in scholarships. Sounds like a lot of money. It's really great. We work real hard to raise that money. We will get over 100,000 highly qualified young people who will apply for 12,000 scholarships. So for every one that we award, we just about turn down 9 other students. And these are students like the ones here who are doing everything right. But, you know, figuring out how to manage this is impossible. And so that they'll get good grades one semester, and then they're trying to figure out, how am I going to enroll the next semester? And the schools have to charge. So, you know, UNCF not only provides ongoing scholarships, but over the last 8 years, we've raised over $20 million in emergency support just to give a $2,000 scholarship to a student so she can pay her final bill and walk across the stage and get the diploma she's worked so hard for. So there's a lot to do here, and I just want to say that you've got the 3 legs of the stool in this program. America's College Promise says, here's an opportunity to invest in students who want to go to community colleges and minority-serving institutions and reduce their debt burden. The next thing that you're saying, very importantly, is we've got to increase Pell. Pell is buying less than it's bought in its entire history. It is important, but it's only paying 30% at a public institution and 13% at a private institution, and we need to increase it. And finally, for the 43 million people who are out there who did what only thing they could do to get their degree or to get on the pathway to get their degree, they have onerous debt. And, you know, I'm going to say to the professor here, you know, you're one of the ones who actually completed with debt. And the other untold story is the millions of people who can't figure out how to stay in school, don't just stop out, they drop out, and they are the least likely to pay. Final point here. We're going to see, what do we have up here? People of color, women, first generation who are going to and completing, and they finish that degree, and underemployment and unemployment at higher rates, so that their repaying is difficult. We've got to solve this for them. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. We're going to go to Guy, and then Chelsea, and then over to Senator Blumenthal. Guy, I know that you graduated, right, and you're on a farm in Maryland, and you've had to decide basically between getting a farm and starting a family, just another stark choice that so many young people are making. Tell your story, Guy.
That's correct. Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to share my story. So my name's Guy Kilpatrick, and
You got to get the mic on.
oh, it is on. It's on. I'm just talking.
He's
quiet.
just
So I grew up in rural Maryland. Just a little bit on my personal history here. I grew up in rural Maryland and went to college at an in-state school, St. Mary's College of Maryland, for anyone who knows it. Both of my parents were not really strong financial supporters, so I was pretty much on my own from age 18. My dad was a laborer. My mom has her own student debt from a master's degree that she got in her 40s. I worked my way through college to help pay for my living expenses, but I took out lots of loans to pay for the actual tuition. I left undergrad with $12,000 in student loan debt, and I have been paying it every month since 2010. However, I married into a great deal more loan debt. My wife got her master's degree a few years ago, so now we're up around $45,000 in debt. I'm not from a farming family, even though I grew up in a rural area. I came to this career out of my own interest and in response to a national call to action because we need more farmers. I think we need to replace 100,000 farmers in the next 5 years. It was a goal of mine and my wife to have a farm by now, and that's not something we've been able to do, partly due to student loan debts. I also realized that working on these farms wasn't really providing me with enough financial benefits to live on. So at one point, I actually went into loan forbearance just to pay for health insurance. And that's mainly due to the fact that farming is a dangerous job, and it was really important to me, with all the stress and the health challenges, that I have that backup. And this was prior to the Affordable Care Act. So again, I graduated in 2009, which was a great time to enter the workforce. So at this point, I'm nearing 30. I'm 28 years old. My wife turns 30 this year. And we are both very much thinking about starting a family. We'd like to be homeowners. We'd like to be farm owners. But with our combined student loan debt and all of the other living expenses that we have, that's really been a dream deferred at this point. We were fortunate both to get pretty good jobs. We both work at the University of Maryland. I run a campus vegetable farm there. And our way of giving back to the community, because we're both dedicated to public service, is to actually help to train that next generation of farmers. So that's pretty much my story.
That's a great story.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. And I hope we'll have some time for questions here at the end. And Chelsea Jo Herrig is from Minnesota. She and I are wearing matching things.
Yes, we are matching.
And she is from Southwest Minnesota, actually goes to school at Marshall, and at Southwest State, one of our great public state colleges. She's someone with $30,000 in student debt, is that right? And she wants to be a teacher. And as we look at our national interest in encouraging young people to go into teaching and other occupations like this that may not pay as high as others, I think we have to think about that too as we look at the student loan. We're actually creating incentives for people not to go into careers like teaching, and I think that's a problem. So Chelsea, why don't you tell your story?
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar and Al Franken and all the senators in here for being champions for the next generation. Also, thank you to all of the other speakers for being brave and sharing your story. So I come from Southwest Minnesota State University, where I studied to be an elementary teacher with a math emphasis and a special ed minor. I am currently on leave serving as the NEA student chair, so the president of 55,000 future educators, and as you mentioned, it's something that's very important to all of those people. I come from a low-income family, single parent, Jackson, Minnesota, a super small town, and my mom knew that college was expensive, but she never told me that I shouldn't go because she knew that my heart was set on becoming an educator. I currently have $30,000, but because I'm on leave, I have one more semester when I return, and I will graduate with $45,000 in student debt to become a teacher where I get paid a whole lot of money, right? Yes.
Without Pell Grants, I wouldn't have been able to continue to go to school.
Do you know what the starting salaries are for teachers?
Depends on where I teach. If I teach in Minnesota, it's around 30-ish thousand where I want to teach.
What's the cost of tuition and room and board a year at your school?
It's about 15,000 total for each, so 7,000 per semester.
Right, and that's how you accumulated the debt.
That's how I accumulated the debt, yes.
But you do know about loan forgiveness programs for people who go into teaching?
Yes, I do. And I am very thankful for that, yes. So I had to work multiple jobs while going to school, 4 jobs to be specific. I worked a full-time job in the summertime along with 2 part-time jobs, and then had multiple jobs throughout the school year. And I know that I made the right decision, but my biggest fear is, as you already mentioned, that there are people who also aspire to be educators who fear that that decision isn't the right decision for them financially. And our students in America need great educators. And so we need to encourage them and make it financially stable for them to pursue that career, because America's students deserve it and that's what they need. And I know that I made the right decision, and I hope that others will see that educating students is worth every penny that I will owe, but I can't say that that's what everyone feels. I see it every day, peers of mine who change their career, and they're devastated because of it, because they want to change the lives of students, but they can't afford to. So that's the aspect that I bring.
Thank you.
Chelsea?
Senator Franken.
Yes.
How many hours a week do you work? You say you work full-time during the summer. How many hours a week do you work while you're going to school?
About 30.
Okay, that's not uncommon. Now,
Correct.
I've had roundtables where I ask kids, how many here work 20 hours a week? All of them, or almost all of them. 30, a lot of them. 40 hours a week, some of them. 40 hours a week while you're going to school is not what people think. That's not Ricky Nelson going to school. Ricky Nelson, he.
that is not a millennial like. And now
There was this show, Ozzie and Harry, and Ricky Nelson was what we thought what college was like. And but the point is, I'll get away from that.
Stop digging.
Senator Franken is much older than the rest of us.
The point is I've had kids tell me that they sell their blood.
Yeah.
Now, my wife's family, they did it through Pell Grants and scholarships. My wife went to school, when I went to school, a Pell Grant paid for about 75 to 80% of a public college education. So you could do it. You could do it. You could go, you could work a little, you could work in the summer, and you could do it. That was our generation. This is a very, very, very different experience for you. And we need to do something about it.
Let me just pick up on that very, very good point, because there was a day when people worked their way through college, and it's no longer possible because of the increase in the cost of college. We haven't really focused on that aspect of this issue so far, but I think we need to grapple with the increasing cost of college. I want to thank you, all of you, for being here to give a face and a voice to this profoundly important issue. And what I'm hearing here is similar to what I've heard in the roundtables I've conducted on college campuses around my state. But I'll tell you the voices that we hear less, and those are the voices of the high school students who are at the bottom of this mountain. And after I held these roundtables on campuses, I began holding them in high schools. And the stories there are truly heartbreaking. Students tell me, the majority, I can't go to my first choice. I was admitted, I worked hard, I got in. I can't go to my dream school. I can't follow a career of nursing or engineering. We need nurses and engineers. And teachers, exactly. This country is losing huge amounts of talent and skill. And to go to Senator Kane's point, which I think is absolutely critical, I also go around my state. I spend a lot of time talking to manufacturers and businesses. And they say to me, you know, I need a welder. I can't find a welder. I can't find someone on my assembly line. I can't find people with the skills to fill the jobs that are open because we don't have enough career and technical training in the state of Connecticut. And I think we are inhibiting growth in our economy. We're impeding our economic future by failing to provide the skill training that we need to do. And I think that's an aspect, I agree with Senator Kane completely, that our nation needs to focus on.
Okay, Senator Casey. See what they're doing.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I want to thank all of the witnesses here today for providing your own personal story. Two quick points. One was the point raised by Senator Kane and Senator Blumenthal on career and technical education. Senator Murray, as the leader of the Help Committee, working with me and also, strangely or unusually, some Republicans, we're working on this issue, and I think it is part of the challenge we face, but it's an important point to make that we focus on that. Secondly, I was thinking when I was listening to the professor, one of the issues you raised that has creates an additional burden is the cost of child care. We have legislation to increase the support for that with the Child Care and Development Fund, but we've got some work to do, and we're going to need help on that as well. And then thirdly, I guess the one thing that strikes me when I listen to your testimony, the testimony of all of the students, is the degree of pressure that you feel just to have the certainty that you're going to be able to continue your education. And that kind of anxiety and worry should arise because you're studying for a test, or you're worried about a grade, or you're worried. So academic pressure is certainly a reality, but I've been struck by how often that comes up, that just the pressure to continue or the uncertainty about continuing is one of the reasons we're in this fight, and we got to continue to work together. But your testimony provides real meaning for the work that we're doing as a caucus, so we want to thank you for that.
Okay, Chuck, you want to say the last word here?
Yeah, two things. Just going back to my college days, which were in the Ricky Nelson days, I remember this. Tuition, room, and board were $1,700. I worked and got $1.25 an hour. I could pay for half of it by working 20 hours a week in a summer job. Can't do that anymore. That's without any other financial assistance. That's how things have gotten out of whack. Second point. So we're going to bring this proposal to the floor in a month or two. We need all of you and the people on your campuses as part of your organizations, people in all the schools that Dr. Lomax represents, to start, to make sure they email, contact their senators and say, vote for this. Mm-hmm. We need some political muscle behind this. We know how our students feel, but they got to let their legislators know, because this is a crisis in America, and I think all of us found what you said very moving. But without action, we can't really succeed, and you can help us get that. So please spend some time letting your college newspapers know, letting your fellow students know, letting the people in the organizations know. Get it moving. Put it on your websites.
Mm-hmm. Parents, yeah.
Tweet it, everything like that.
He likes to say that. Thank you, everyone. And I think you see the commitment that we have in our caucus. We've had 19 senators here, which is one of our records, many of them staying till the end. And I think that is, again, one example of this. I want to give the students some hope. When I had student loans as well. And for those of you that are single, right when I pay them off, I met my husband. He's 8 years younger, and he had $50,000 in student loans, and I married him anyway. So I want you to know that. And also, I think the more that we get pressure on some of our colleagues on this, this is a presidential year. People are really starting to focus on this issue. And I think many of us have been talking about it for years, going around campuses with big checks. Maybe one kid signs up. I mean, I've had these experiences, honestly, like 10 years ago. But this is different this time. And it's because of all of you and the grassroots effort that's been started by many of the people at the front here at this table, but it mostly came from you. So keep it up. I have a feeling we're going to get something done more than I've ever felt before. So keep wearing those buttons, and we're going to win this. Thank you, everyone.
Great job, Amy. This was super. We should do it again once. Can you?
Thank you so much. They're the best.
Good to see you.